Akiiki Deo. I don't want to repeat mistakes. I know members of the forces and the ranks, it's a very sensitive matter.
Because it's not easy to get them.
From
Good evening,
Kira,
viewers, and thank you for hosting us.
From Kira Municipality, from the Forum for Democratic Change, and the frontliner, the Honorable Ibrahim Ssemujju Nganda. Very nice of you, sir.
Yes, Charles, thank you.
And missing in action this week, Ofono Opondo, and also missing again, and will be away for a few more days. The Honorable Winnie Kiza will be missing. You can continue, you can join us in this discussion. One, follow us on the Afro mobile app. You can be watching us from there. But number two is continue the conversation on our social media platforms. I want to start with the UPDF, Colonel Deo Akiiki. What do we know now, a week since this attack? Who actually carried out the attack? We have had conflicting accounts. And what do we know at the moment?
Charles, there is no doubt that all findings lead to the usual suspect, ADF. And the special force, which is on heels following these terrorists, confirm every day the presence of, or the footmarks of ADF that has continued to move to try to link up with other splinter groups. Because currently, most of the camps were hit, and they decided to change the modus operandi. Their tactics changed, of course, because of being hit, and they split it into smaller groups. And most of these smaller groups are being monitored, but because of the vastness of the Congo, you can't also rule out that some other splinter groups manages to operate without being cited by our Easter assets or intelligence assets. But we have a feeling that with the time, they will be got.
How we have been running, you've been running Operation Shujaa for the last 2 years. And every indication was that the ADF had been decimated. A decimated force doesn't attack in a space of hours and leaves 42 people dead. One of them I know died in hospital later, but 42 dead so far. That's a huge number.
Yes, in military tactics, when an enemy is hit, he becomes more dangerous, especially when he decides to adopt the guerrilla war type of tactics. And for ADF, they spice it with terrorism. It is true, ADF is decimated. If at all the word decimating does not imply complete annihilation, but at least hit hard. We have quite a number of places or camps that ADF had in the Congo. And they had virtually made that part of Eastern Congo in these areas like a home, whereby they recruit, they train, they grow food. A lot of food gardens were destroyed and were found. Now that they are in smaller groups, they have one thing to do, is to send a message. One, that we are still capable of doing something, so that the world do not believe that ADF has been defeated. It's done by any group. Number two, trying to divert our forces, so that our forces that are in the three sectors operating within DRC, in Irumu, in the Rwenzori sector, we call them sector 1, 2, and 3, in the Mwalika Valley, can be diverted and they leave. Because these are the areas where they had food, these are the areas where they had all their connections, and they had managed also to infiltrate within the population and get some people who sympathize with them, who can make them survive. So if we pulled from these areas towards the border or inside Uganda, ADF would definitely love that. So the coming in Impondwe and the unfortunate incident where our children were killed, to me is based on those two explanations. Number two, what we need also to know is that we have kept this border, which is very, very, you would say, fragile border to keep, because it is the biggest on our western axis, but at the same time, a place which has all types of threats towards the security of Uganda. So, we have kept that border since, you said 96 when they attacked Impondwe, 98 when the 80 students and 180 were killed and 100 taken.
At Uganda Technical College, Kichwamba.
Yes. Another time they tried to come in Ntoroko, we gave them a very good beating. And by the way, there are other attempts, not only by ADF, by other groups who would like to destabilize this country, that keep trying to infiltrate and disturb our people, and we have put them off. Some of these things we don't necessarily bring them to the media.
Yes, particularly with the ADF, not once, not twice, government has pronounced that the ADF is wiped out. We have actually had moments when we've been given numbers countable on one's fingers of the remaining ADF in the jungles. Number two, the commander of the ADF, Jamil Mukulu, has been an inmate, has been resident in prison in Uganda for some time now. More than 5 years, you'd say? Yeah, more than 5 years. How are they able to rebuild? How are they able to sustain their operations and their presence within the Democratic Republic of Congo and actually go ahead and carry out attacks in this country?
Yes. First of all, ADF was operating in Uganda, trying to do conventional tactics, trying to do terrorism. You remember all those bombs throwing, until they were hit, and that's when you were told, and they retreated into the Congo. However, they had links with other terrorist organizations, and they had known the tactics of terrorism of recruiting cells, and they left their cells within the country. But conventionally and in guerrilla warfare, we hit them out of the Rwenzori, out of all those areas, including your own, yours and my own district in Kabarole, in the Toro region and within the areas of Kasese. And they were hit, and our people started enjoying peace. But remember, they retreated into the Congo and stayed there untouched for close to 20 or over 20 years. 20 years is too good for any group, any organization to do whatever they want. And this is what I was saying in the beginning. They managed to sustain themselves in terms of food because they cultivated, not once, not twice, all seasons. They were able even to fight off certain groups, including some elements of Fadaka forces, and take arms from them. So
they're able to create their own territory.
Exactly.
within the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Actually, not only in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Remember, these are the guys who are now linked to huge, big terrorist organizations. If you have ever heard of something called ISCAP, I think it's it is attached to Central African region, and ISIS and all of this.
It's the ISIS in Central Africa, I think.
Yes. So that linkage. So that means they were now expanding. They had enough time to organize themselves in DRC and also to link up with international terrorist organizations and be able to get resources from not only in the Congo, also from the sponsors of these terrorist organizations.
Without leadership, when Mukulu is in
they had leadership. When Mukulu left, you remember there was a Baluku. There are other commanders. Today, if one of the commanders is off, it does not mean the whole command structure of UPDF force. Another commander emerges. It is normal. And we have seen other middle commanders of ADF actually who are more dangerous than some of the commanders we knew.
Okay. For our viewers, I cut my teeth into journalism covering the ADF when they first attacked and they were operating in large areas of Western Uganda. From Kasese through Wundibugyo through Kabarole district, present-day Bunyangabu district, I think they did make attempts to cross into Kamwenge district, into Kibale district, into Kienjojo district, and now Kagadi district. They've tried to, they've been operating in those areas as well as carrying out some operations and attacks in urban areas in Kampala when they were throwing bombs in the year 2001, I think. That's when they were throwing bombs. Honorable Robert Centenary, let me come to you. On the show, we did have a conversation with you last week on the other show that I host, which is NBS Face Off, but we did not discuss the attack. The attack happened. As a person who's been on the ground, what is the mood, what is the feeling of the people? How are they dealing with the trauma of this attack? Super.
Yeah, ultimately, I can say in 1996, when the ADF first attacked Kasese, I was in Chiburara. I personally witnessed bullets being rocked that very night when they came and abducted the seminarians at St. John's Seminary. I was there, and I had the bullets. So it's a very nasty experience that we went through as the people of Kasese. And it took quite some time for the UPDF to pacify the ADF rebellion. Actually, I must say probably the people of Kasese are a bit lucky because apparently, I think a certain contingent of the rebels had been trapped the other side by the river Lubiria. You know, there's a river that separates Uganda from
the DRC.
From the DRC. And that is how probably we managed to survive. They could have gone up to Fort Poto, Mbarara, or even Kamwenge. You never know if the river had not, if it wasn't for the intervention of the river. That is back then in 1996. That was in level. So the economy of Kasese actually has never been the same since the ADF attack. People fled Kasese. Those of us who had nowhere to go, we stayed in town. And every time there were some bullets, we would just go under our beds, or, you know, that is the best we would do. I remember my school was in a war zone, but until 1998, when I completed my A-level, we stayed and completed by God's grace. There was no abduction, there was no attack at my school in particular.
But they attacked the seminary and abducted
Yeah, it was in the neighborhood,
yes.
Yeah. I remember ADF at that time was being founded on a fundamentalism agenda. But that notwithstanding, the trauma that came with the ADF attack is still very fresh. Some of us still remember how the sound of those bullets. And therefore, we would not wish to go back into that situation.
So this particular attack of last week, how is the population responding? Yesterday, the security forces, the army, the RDC, the police, were saying there's no need to impose a curfew because the security forces feel they have regained control of the situation. The rebels were able to break through, beat intelligence, break through, carry out the attack, but they're being pursued. Actually, I'll come back to Akiiki later on the pursuit of those who carried out the attack. For Kasese town, for example, now, and that important border post in Bwera, how is the population settling in, adjusting to this latest attack?
First of all, I must commend the security forces for the response thereafter, especially in trying to restore calmness. And you know that Kasese is a tourism destination. We've had cancellations of tourists because of those travel advisories. But for me, it's an operation that lasted not more than 3 hours. To the world, I think there's no need for us to panic. Calm has been restored. Some schools have reopened. Although that fear that maybe these people may come back, in my view, I think you would be stupid to come and attack and then return to be pursued by the forces, because now I believe the forces are now more alert than they were. So there is business, normal business going on in Kasese, but our population also has a problem. Sometimes they, with this WhatsApp, people send panic messages that the rebels have come back, and what? The other day there was somebody being announced as to, he went in Kasese town. He went to an old woman asking for her to roast for him a piece of maize. And they were saying, no, the rebels are now in the national park, but I don't think that is true. To the best of my knowledge, I want even to correct my brother, Akiiki, that ADF did not start its operations. Well, they might have planned their operations here, but the first attack emanated from Congo, DRC.
Yeah, that 1996 attack, they walked out of Congo,
yes.
Attacked and then
after
fled back.
being pursued, they did their activities here, and then they went back and retreated to the jungles of Congo because it's a safe haven for them.
Now, a quick one.
But the markets, every Tuesday and Friday
are market days.
Are market days at the border. And people are conducting business.
Okay. Now, a quick one. We have had, since this attack, actually started by the Minister for Education, that there is more to this particular attack on Lubiriha Secondary School than the ADF. That the school was under, that there could be other underlying factors like contestations or wrangles over its ownership. How true are these?
Now, when my brother Kano Akiiki was talking about tracing the footmarks of the ADF being traced in the jungles, I was wondering what parameter they were using. I don't know if they have a gadget that, because ADF itself has not yet claimed this particular attack, although our forces have attributed it to the ADF. But I want also to say that it defeats logic for one to attribute an attack, which my brother will agree with me, that it was done by highly skilled and trained people. When there is a disagreement that arises from an audit query or maybe ownership of a school, the best we as civilians can do is to buy petrol and set the school ablaze, maybe one of the dormitories or the classes, and run away. There is no way a civilian can mobilize bombs, guns, and machetes to come and attack a school. That, I disagree with it, really. Yes, there could have been disagreements, but the method and scale of attack does not resonate with a disagreement from an audit query.
For the benefit of our viewers who may not understand the geography or the dynamics in Kasese, could you help us understand what is this school? What is unique about it?
The school is an NGO founded by one hunter, is a white man.
Peter Hunter.
Peter Hunter, yes. And there are some members from the community. Of course, it was like, I don't know if I'll call it a partnership. But then, it has been running, the wrangles notwithstanding. So I do not think that then, unless you want to say, because I heard that the head teacher and one of the directors had been put behind bars to help in investigations, unless you want to insinuate that those directors actually collaborated with ADF and invited them to come and attack the school. But naturally, civilians cannot attack, cannot carry out such an attack.
Honorable Minister, could you shed some more light on this other theory of the wrangles within the school as being one area of theory of investigation that is being pursued in relation to this attack? Because we understand there had been a recent audit that was being conducted, that the school itself, for the benefit of our viewers, is not a really old school. It's a fairly new school.
Yeah.
less than 10 years old, about 5, 6 years old, from what I'm hearing.
It's fairly new school.
Yes, a fairly new school. The population, it's both day and boarding.
Yeah.
And out of the boarding section, the children who are killed constitute maybe more than 50%. From what we're hearing, maybe about 50%, I don't know. Could you shed some light on that other theory?
Well, what we pick that, like I was saying, this is a school which was established mainly to support reformed poachers. I think with the assistance of that Canadian partner, and yes, that had those ownership and leadership wrangles, and also strangely that the majority of the children who were studying from there are not from the local community. Actually, they say maybe 2 only were from around. The others were from outside the constituency, and it had about 65 students, and that was like a mix of secondary and also vocational training school. So it's a school which probably was not very much supported even by the local community. These are the facts which we are getting. And also when the Minister of Education narrated that information, I've seen sections of the public trying to misunderstand her by saying that's the cause. She said this is the information that we have. And we are not saying that is the cause of what has happened, but it's just information that is available to the Ministry of Education. And investigations are ongoing to see whether there is a link between this attack and those wrangles at the school. For now, I think it is still premature to say the attack had anything to do with those wrangles. It could be a coincidence, or maybe there could be a link. Eventually, I think the investigators will tell us. But like Akiiki said, the preliminary findings all point to the suspicion of ADF because the way they killed the students is very characteristic of how ADF has been carrying out its killings in the past. And also, information keeps coming in. Some of it we cannot give to the public, but some of the raw information, I was speaking to someone on the ground. I think there is somebody whom ADF had recruited who has escaped, who is giving information much more accurate about the whole attack. So all indications point to ADF, although they have not publicly
Claimed
admitted, but all indications indicate that the ADF is behind this attack. And our forces are pursuing them, and we are also getting information from the ground, from the hot pursuit which they are having within the jungles of DRC. First of all, the way they attacked, butchering the students with the machetes, with the pangas, with the sharp objects, throwing a bomb to kill the male students who were in the dormitory. That's how ADF and even other terrorist groups have been operating. We know that the ADF is a terrorist organization. They don't even have any political objectives that we know, that they want political power or that they are fighting the government of Uganda. They seem to be bent on just destabilizing wherever they are. Because also when you assess what they do within DRC, they kill civilians in Congo, they meet the Congolese armed forces, kill them, so they just kill left and right. So do they also want the power in the Congo? Oh. And if there was a group which wanted to militarily face the government of Uganda, then they would be aiming at the military installations, the soldiers, the armed personnel, so that there is a confrontation. But for them to just come and kill innocent students who have nothing to do with the government and the politics of the day, really shows that theirs is just a terrorist organization. We also know that they are linked with the other terrorist organizations like the Al-Shabaab, the ISIS, There is also a terrorist group in northern Mozambique. So it's a network of terrorist groups operating within the African continent. And they are deeply involved in economic activities within the DRC, especially mining and the timber trade. That's how they raise money to survive. And they do recruitment within the country here. And they come, they take young people from the country and lure them and deceive them that they are taking them to give them jobs. That's how some of the young Ugandans who are jobless end up being recruited into these terrorist groups in the hope that they are going to get jobs when actually they are being recruited to be trained to just become terrorists.
Thank you.
And it is true that through Operation Shuja, yes, there may be a scare that they have come and killed the students, but they have been weakened because their bases have been disrupted and scattered. So they are now just marauding within the jungles of Congo. So this attack may just show some courage that we are still there. Don't count us off, but they are no longer as strong as they were in the past. All this information is available.
Honorable Ssemujju Nganda, let me come to you. The time of the first attack by the ADF, you were an active journalist. In 96?
Was still in school.
I was at Makerere.
You were at Makerere?
Just entered.
Yes, okay. You just entered Makerere. And but then you grew as a journalist covering or following closely what the ADF was doing. For a rebel group, which has morphed into a terrorist organization and designated so, to survive up to this day, I think it's the longest surviving rebel group in the country. What does this say to you? What do you read out of this?
If you allow me, let me start with government. Today, we are the Minister of Defense presenting a statement to Parliament. This statement, we are the ones who demanded for it. In fact, I am the one who complained because government had sent Dr. Ssemujju Nganda, Minister of State for Education, to be the one to present a statement. And in my view, the Minister of State for Education would not adequately address issues of defense and security. The Speaker then asked the defense to be the one to come. The trouble is that government thinks this attack takes away all the achievements they have made fighting ADF. That's why they are using it to appraise themselves and making the same mistakes they have been making in the past. Explaining and profiling ADF as something that has nearly been finished. And because the moment you say so, if that's something that you have finished carries out an attack like this one, then you have, and that's why I've seen you NBS asking for the unanswered questions. I remember one time, it must have been General Aronda. He went into a closed meeting with the Committee on Defense and Internal Affairs. And at that time, he said the ADF controlled an area in Congo, which was almost the size of Uganda. That's what he told the committee. And they nearly had set up an administration and they were in charge. The trouble with the sort of attitude many governments have with groups that are fighting is that they open only one door. This is a terrorist group, we must fight it and finish it. They don't create room to study it and see if there is any possibility of interacting with it and end it peacefully. Because the moment you have designated a rebel group as terrorist, equip yourself to go and finish it. Oh, rebels behave the same way. Colonel Akiiki.
Minister Dr. Bariomus was the one asking, who raises that question. What is ADF's ideology? What is its political game plan to create a basis for engagement? Then number two, the history of this government has been negotiating with all sorts of groups over the years, including the Lord's Resistance Army through 2006, before 2006. Lots of engagements were happening and negotiations were happening. So would it be fair that to accuse the army?
I've said this particular rebel group that we are talking about, I'm not talking about the others. All the accusations against ADF are accusations against all rebel group. They all behave the same way. This rebel group that captured the power here called the NRA were doing the same things, throwing bombs. If you read their books of Charles Gonza and Pecos Kutesa, they were actually carrying out terrorism. That's how they behave. Pecos Kutesa said they went to throw a bomb at a fuel depot in Namuongo, and he said, we are unlucky there was no fuel. We are going to burn the city. So their behavior is the same. That's why for me, at every stage, I think a possibility of talking to them can be less costly. But specifically, before I answer your question of how they have survived this long, the attack in Kasese is an attack that has raised many questions about government. When the minister made the presentation today, the Honorable Florence Kabugo, woman MP Kasese, first she told us that an item, if you are smuggling one item, a smaller item from Congo, they will get you. And he said, but how can so many people come with the ammunition, come and attack undetected by the same people who are detecting someone who is smuggling a phone from Congo? And then, yes, it's thing. And then she said, and another MP also told us, when the attack happened, there is a student who escaped. He ran to a police post and he told them, we are under attack. They said, you go and report to another police station. Another MP told us there is a border man that these people met. They shot at him. He took off, abandoned the border. Then he went and informed the, I don't remember that it was military or police, but they did not respond.
He said police.
He said police.
He said police.
So the military, and maybe the world over, is one group that does not want to be assessed. It will begin explaining away their own inefficiencies. Because if you look at our budget, this operation Shuja itself is an operation where we have invested, I think annually 64, if I look at the request they brought and supplementary, 64 billion per year to go and pursue. The Minister of Defense has called them Bukunkumuka, leftovers. That this, they are finished, they are Bukunkumuka leftovers, they are no longer there. That's what he said in his statement. That we are spending 64 billion and more to go and deal with the Bukunkumuka. So they don't want to admit. In fact, the speaker said, please stop calling them leftovers or Bukunkumuka when they have killed
so many.
Yeah. The amount of money that we spend on defense, if you look at the budget, last year, this year, before you add in the classified, I mean the supplementary, 3.7 trillion. When you add police, another trillion. When you add ISO, 150 billion. You add ESO, another 100 billion. There is money for security is scattered all over. You go to President's office, there is a component. So in total, nearly we are spending 6 trillion shilling.
On defense and security.
On defense and security. That's why, Colonel Akiiki, when you fail to provide security to any part, to any person, we will hold you responsible. The trouble is that you present yourself as if you are doing a country a favor. And even when you have failed, you want us to continue praising you. And that's the mentality of people who are commanding the military. And that's why they will put up a defense. Because this particular matter, you've not carried out investigation. But you are telling us this is what happened, but we are investigating. Then you get a minister responsible for education. She wants to be the one to speak about Kasese. She ends up creating another contradiction, saying, no, this other information has also come. And Mariam says, no, you misunderstood. We did not. She's the one who came and said this other information is also available. This attack probably was because of the school rank. But even
she said we are not meaning that it is the cause.
When you are investigating, you must not be in a hurry to release the results. When UPDF was fighting road resistance army, you recall an incident, I don't know whether he retired at a Kano, today I will spare his name, who attacked a bus, UPDF attacking a bus, because they knew that the person who will be blamed will be road resistance army. They routed it, going to Arua. At that time he was commanding military police. I have left his name. He eventually came, stood as a chairman for a district. And so even the military itself, when you are investigating, do not close the door. Let everybody be investigated. You have had the UPDF here selling guns to Al-Shabaab, and Kano was in Ruzira for the offense. Did they, because you are now, and the complaint of the Honorable Florence Kabugo was that with a wide and a massive security infrastructure from the village of Iso, of Aradiso, of everybody, instead of arresting people who are responsible for security who failed, they are now arresting civilians.
And
because when you arrest...
they rounded up mad people.
In Unyangabo?
And I heard that they are also rounding up mad people because they might be, I don't know, the collaborators. Or
I think the correct description for those people is people with mental illness.
Yes.
Sure.
Not mad people.
So they panic, and the casual way, and the panic and the appearance as if you are covering up undermines the information that you want to give us.
Okay.
Because if you have a government and said, please, this attack has happened, we suspect it's ADF, but let's go and find out. But they first say ADF, after giving you results, then they say, oh, now we are investigating. And it has come at the worst time, when the commander-in-chief himself has indicted the military. Said in Somalia, Kano Akiiki, you deployed the cooks, your drivers, you deployed the personal assistants because of corruption. So the military now is in the dock. The failure in Somalia, maybe it's the same, and even the response that you have got to get someone like Major General Olum, who is in Congo, to be the one to return to Uganda. In fact, today an MP told us that when he met them, he said, you see, you wanted to come and arrest you because you got the information, but the Congolese were not allowing us to cross into Uganda. Really, there is a problem now with the defense, and they will need to explain. You are not the army that we knew you were. Now you are an army that sends drivers because you have sniffed money there. You are an army with a number of divisions, with a lot of money, but people who were supposed to come and rescue students under attack, now we are returning from Congo. And I'm not surprised that I saw... Would
you rather they would have moved from Kampala or from Fort Portal, Mbarara?
No, there's a barracks in Rusese.
But they have told you there is even a, I don't know whether it's a detach, I don't know the number, at Impondo itself.
Okay. Yeah. Akiiki will respond. Now, let me reframe these questions. Was security caught napping? Kano Dikolum, Major General Dikolum told the people of Mpondwe that the rebels had spent 2 nights in Kasese before they attacked. We've had the theory of that report. We've had the story of that report by a student who ran to a police post or and said there's an attack going on and the response time. What happened? What were there security intelligence lapses?
Yeah, by the way, there are some facts that should be put very clear. You see, this issue of asking people who actually don't understand much about security and they become security experts, sometimes they mislead the population. This if I may explain this very attack in terms of proximity of the forces and all of this reporting. Number one, we have a detached 2 kilometers away in a place called the Kamukimbia. Kamukumbi. That is, 2 kilometers away. And I think another one is at the border post in Impondwe, which should be northwest of the school, which was attacked 3 kilometers away. These are detachments. Yes. And then the Rusesa one. And we have police, which is also, I think, 1.5 kilometers away, 1.5 kilometers away. And we have an incident whereby this school is located close to the border. And on the other side of the border, we have a game park where we don't have any deployment. And we never had any pockets of ADF suspected to be in these areas. So there was really no need of making deployments in the borders when we could have relied on the forces pursuing the enemy the other side. And of course, these minimal force in these 2 places. The attack happens at around the 10:40, 10:30. It goes up to, this was a raid actually in the military language. It was a raid. A raid is very swift. And I wonder when people say that they came and stayed. This raid, according to the intelligence, which was well connected, if you look at it, it is a raid which took like 20, 25 minutes. And number 2 is these were not stupid attackers who could come. I was reading my minister's statement of 5 to 10 attackers, yes, inside the building. But militarily, we think there could have been what they call cutoffs. And that's why the border man was shot at. So back to the proximity. Kato, the lady, the Honorable Member of Parliament was talking about, went and reported, is somebody who has escaped from fire. I don't think even he had gone to police. He could have just bumped into where police was, and this was about 3 kilometers away. I don't think at that time this Kato was in the right mind to deliver this information at the right time. Probably he would have meandered around and also wasted some time there. But all of that notwithstanding, the credible information I have, in 40 to an hour, 40 minutes, actually about 40 minutes, there were 2 reactions. One was a patrol vehicle of police, another one was a UPDF Land Cruiser, also with some soldiers on top. And when they arrived, because of all of this chaos, they started now rescuing these girls who were pulled out, the 20 who died outside the dormitory, because they pulled them out and killed them from outside, those who had not yet died, and tried to do a rescue as they coordinated the force to try and pursue. But remember, this now was coming deep into the night, because the force reached there around midnight. They could not even begin the pursuit immediately. Pursuing at night is a little bit a tricky thing unless you have the night visions, the gadgets. They had to continue now putting up together the architecture of making sure they catch up with these fleeing rebels. And remember, if you look at the game park, if you look at these deployments, they actually used a corridor, the middle corridor fleeing into the park. And when you look at that scenario, yes, there could have been lapses in the time they got intelligence, but still the reaction, to me, it is not the way it is presented out there. Actually, we are told that the reaction was in the morning, when actually it was in that night.
But what you're telling us, Kano, is that the ADF, one, were able to sneak in without intelligence detecting that they planned an attack. 2, they were able to execute their mission and exit without anybody confronting them.
And these are the circumstances I'm explaining.
Yes.
And also, what he is not telling Ugandans is that there is a river that is steep at one end where nobody can actually cross over. Now, the question is, that corridor is known.
The
where
crossing
even
corridor.
the smuggle, actually that corridor is the one that the smugglers use because it is not deep.
Honorable Senator, as I told you,
let's continue the discussion after a very short commercial break. We'll pick it up in a moment.
NBS Frontline. This is the University of Africa. On the streets, you get your real education. Here, everybody has a degree of something. But the most important qualification is imagination. His reason is to be the GOAT. The reason to imagine is to take the beat and make it lit. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
As an importer, did you know that submission of import documentation and other required details such as manifests prior to the arrival of your cargo to your preferred clearing and forwarding agent can save you money? Provide your agent with the relevant import documents in time and get your cargo cleared in time upon arrival at the port. This will not only reduce storage costs for you, but also avoid the possibility of container congestion at the ports and improve the efficiency of the international supply chain. This message is brought to you by the Intergovernmental Standing Committee on Shipping in collaboration with the Ministry of Works and Transport.
Better steady, be better.
7 out of 10 of us have lost a substantial amount of money to fraud